We're not planning.
No, it's okay. I appreciate that.
Now we don't. Is there a motion to return to regular session? Second. Okay, I'll take the motion from Mr. Gould and the second.
Mrs. Wise? Aye. Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Okay, we're back in regular session. Mr. McConville, I came before so that you can make a report to the community and to the
Mayor, first I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for waiting during the course of our executive session. Council and the mayor have had a collaborative discussion for the community and for the ARB. I have been asked to draft an ordinance that will expand the membership of the ARB from 3 to 5. The expanded ARB will have staggered term and one member being appointed to a one-year term. And as those vacancies occur, the appointment process will remain as it currently does with mayoral appointment subject to council.
Either reappointed or a new candidate appointed for 3 years at that point.
Correct. Each subsequent appointment will be for a 3-year period. Oh, and I'm leaving out perhaps the most important piece. We anticipate each of the folks who's here this evening very valuable to us, and we inject new ideas and fresh faces onto the.
other bits of housekeeping. We're going to poll for a special meeting to make the requisite changes to the ordinance that organizes the ARB. There is an ARB meeting coming up. Obviously that will be postponed for lack of quorum, but we would then call on our ARB once we have completed this process to hold a special meeting as soon as everyone is available in order to take up the work of the Architectural Review Board and then get back onto the regular schedule. So I want to thank the 3 people who have served together with the 2 new applicants. Looking forward to working with all of you once we restructure and reform and proceed.
Mayor?
Yes.
Motion to table formal items C, E, new items A, B, C.
Yeah, can we take that once?
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable.
All right. So yes, the motion table items A, B, and C on the agenda by Mr. Gould. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll take a second for Mrs. West. Any discussion? Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mrs. Blanco?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise? Aye. Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. Those items are tabled, and we'll work on getting a special meeting ASAP. We now turn to the next agenda item, presentation of John Carroll University Student Government Resolution 02-S22, to urge the University Heights City Council to foster a more sustainable city for all by adopting Mayor Michael Hildenbrand's budget proposal, which lays out a comprehensive plan for improved recycling by various representatives of the John Carroll University Student Government, including President Grace Guilfoyle, Senator Class of 2024 Max Malley, and others. I don't have everybody's name right there. I think there's 4 of you, but come up to the podium and introduce all yourselves and you may proceed here.
Hello.
Thank you for waiting.
Of course. Hello, my name is Grace Guilfoyle, and I'm the president of the John Carroll Student Government.
My name is Jacob Kozlowski. I'm the vice president of John Carroll Student Government.
I'm Max Malley. I'm a class of 2024 sophomore senator.
I'm Heather Dunlap. I'm a freshman senator, class of 2025. We'd like to thank the mayor for the invitation to speak at tonight's council meeting. At this time, I will read Senate Resolution 02-S22 into the record. Intent and purpose to urge the University Heights City Council to foster a more sustainable city for all by adopting Mayor Brennan's budget proposal, which lays out a comprehensive plan for improved recycling. Currently, according to Mayor Brennan's budget proposal, putting people first, University Heights has one of the most inefficient recycling programs in Cuyahoga County. With only 4% of solid waste being recycled, University Heights has the 3rd lowest recycling rate in a county outside of the city of Cleveland. and clarifying that the budget contains a typo. The city's recycling rate in 2020 was 5% as opposed to 6%, and further clarifying that the City of University Heights recycling rate in 2021 dropped down to 4%. And according to the mayor's report from the 22nd of February in 2022, University Heights does not provide the infrastructure to recycle effectively. The city does not provide service department employees the equipment they need for effective pickup, and the city still requires residents to use single-use plastic bags. And whereas in the status quo, those bags are torn open and thrown away at the materials recovery facility, University Heights pays a 50% premium for the service handling of mixed-use bags. And noting that a 50% premium is an expensive cost on the taxpayers of University Heights, and demands more expense from the recycling operations in the city. And further noting the blue plastic bags currently in use do not hold cardboard easily, resulting in residents having to flatten cardboard boxes and tie them together with twine to allow for better handling on service employees' behalf. Further noting all residential recycling is placed in the front of the scooters, which collects waste, and further noting city employees drive the scooters up to residential driveways and into the backyards and place recyclables in those bins. If the cardboard boxes are not tied, or even if it is tied, the items do not fit in the two small bins, and the items meant for recycling ends up in the hopper on the back of the scooter with the rest of the trash. And acknowledging that once the items that are meant for recycling are in the back of the scooter, it is classified as trash and will not be recycled. And recognizing that the mayor's proposed budget provides for one 69-gallon recycling cart on wheels for each household currently serviced by the city for trash and recycling pickup. And further recognizing that under this plan, residents may place their recyclables directly in the aforementioned cart, loose and without a single-use blue bag, and understanding that the service department of University Heights already has a cart flipper on hand for handling the carts, all that is needed now are the carts to carry out this mission. Further understanding that the increase of mail order delivery for goods, especially since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the 69-gallon recycling carts are better suited for the volume of cardboard that residents use, and currently loose cardboard that is not tied or bagged as is currently required is frequently discarded with the trash instead of the recycling, as the current method of pickup is not compatible with handling a high volume of cardboard. And currently, according to the mayor's report, University Heights bids recycling with the Eastside Consortium, a group of Eastside suburban cities that bid together for trash and recycling processing. And noting that the Eastside Consortium cities pay $69 a ton for the processing of loose recycling, $96 a ton for bag recycling, and further noting the Solid Waste District has advised the City of University Heights that future bids for recycling processing likely will not include a bag processing option. Without it, further according to the mayor's report, the City of University Heights must have transitioned to loose recycling, and further noting that if University Heights does not transition to loose recycling, such as is outlined in the budget, the recycling program in the city will end for want of a bidder of bagged recyclables, and further noting that this current recycling contract with the Eastside Consortium ends on September 30th, 2022. And understanding that while the contract provides for an option year, the option is only on the condition that the city and the recycling contractor are in agreement, and further understanding that the University Heights City Council may still vote on this budget item. It is not too late in the calendar year, and further understanding that the citizens of University Heights and the student body of John Carroll wish to see a more sustainable city, one that does its due diligence and recycles, and further understanding that this resolution calls for immediate passage of Mayor Brennan's budget item on recycling and for a vote to take place among council with all deliberate speed. And according to the general bylaws of John Carroll Student Government, Article 2, Section 1, Subsection I, resolutions are bills which contain statements of principle. These reflect the opinions of the student body and are especially designed to influence public opinion. And therefore, it be resolved that the University Heights City Council implement Mayor Brennan's budget item on sustainability, which details a comprehensive plan to rectify the problems regarding recycling. This resolution was introduced and unanimously passed by the Senate on March 22nd, 2022, and has been signed into effect by myself and Vice President Jacob Kozlowski. I'd now like to invite Senator Max Malley up to share a few remarks on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, President Gilmore.
And I'd like to quickly thank President Guilfoyle for all the work that she and Vice President Kozlowski and every senator, including Senator Dunlap behind me, have done on this issue. In my conversations with the students of John Carroll University, it's evident that people care. People care about recycling. They want us all to be a more sustainable city, whatever form that takes. The people don't necessarily care whose plan it is or what exactly it does, but all that they know is that we want to set a better future for ourselves, for our children, and for anyone else that follow. And this is the city that we're all inhabiting now. And I know, I've been in these meetings before, we all have great intentions. We all want this issue to come to a pass, because when recycling gets solved, we can be proud of ourselves again. We can say that we have a higher rate of recycling, maybe even 25% of our waste recycling. And even though the recycling outputs are different for the University of John Carroll and for the city, we still care about the city that we live in. We're perhaps part of its most passionate citizens. We're here for 4 years, and that spirit grows exponentially within us as the days go on. So I'd just like to iterate, as I'm sure everyone in student government would too, that we want to see a solution, some sort of fix, because we care about this. And we know that all of you do too. And even those residents who may not know this is affecting them, they all care so much too, because I'm sure that everyone who lives in the city and in this planet that we call home too, they care about their futures. They want their descendants to have a happy life, a sustainable future. And you've all been elected in some form or another, public servants, and that's awesome. You should all be proud of yourselves, but let's all take that call and let's heat up those people's votes, those citizens' votes who entrusted you with that power, and make a difference. Because as recycling gets solved, as the recycling programs in UH become more robust, we can move on to bigger and better things that people can see in University Heights, like solar panels, as we mentioned in the open forum earlier. Let's think about the future. Let's think big. So if anyone else has anything else to offer, I'd like to say thanks so much, Mayor Brennan, for inviting us here today. Thanks for all the members of council that have either reached out, invite us to more meetings, or talking casual conversations. We really appreciate those conversations, and we never want these dialogues to end, because this is important. This is about the future. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Senator Malley. And thank you, President Guilfoyle. Thank you, Vice President Kozlowski, and thank you, Senator Dunlap.
I would love to speak with the students. Have questions?
I suppose. Would you yield the questions from members of our council?
For sure. Would you be allowed?
Please come back to the
For sure.
so that you can speak to the mayor.
My name is Sherry Sachs. I'm a new councilwoman here on University Heights City Council. I have been assigned to be the chair of the Service and Utilities Committee, which takes care of rubbish collection, including solid trash and recycling. So it meant a lot to me to read and to hear from you tonight about your advocacy for a more sustainable community. And I hope that not only you be leaders, but we'll also be leaders in our community and set some standards. Professional due diligence and collaboration are necessary to proceed. So I have some questions and some comments that I hope will help us all gain some clarity tonight. And as I responded to your email, I do invite you to the next committee meeting, which is May 3rd at 7 o'clock per Friday. So, first, I want to start with the end. I'm going to first start with what we've accomplished so far in the Services and Utilities Committee, because I'm not sure you're aware of it. Through many conversations, many interactions with the people, organizations, in Cuyahoga County that actually directly impact our solid trash collection and recycling, I've been able to get some insights. Also with some neighboring cities who have some best practices in order to see what's going on in this community, because I'm new to it, and I want to do the best I can. So at the beginning, the intent and purpose of your resolution indicates a comprehensive plan. You mentioned that a couple of times. Besides the purchase of the large 69 or 64 gallon containers for recycling, what is the comprehensive plan that you're aware of?
So the comprehensive plan that we were referring to specifically was the budget proposal laid out by Mayor Brennan in the proposal for 2022. We, the members of the Student Government Senate deemed that that was sufficient, that was necessary, and so we wanted to follow that. That was our comprehensive plan that we were referring to.
So that's $250,000 for those bids. But as far as a plan, like implementing it, knowing the number of residents who currently participate through their, in recycling, I'm not aware of any of that. Any of that those metrics, recycling rate, what Pepper Pike and Shake talk about later. And I would like you to come to the meeting, and we can learn more about that together. In the summer, not been implemented at all. That could be adjusted with backyard collection. I know you've cited many pages in your last March 21st meeting remarks, but none of them talk about that. Also, one of the things that's not been discussed is the real savings. We didn't even talk about money with backyard collection. 60% would be from labor reduction, and there's quite a bit here. Our administration, our council, desperately wants to improve our recycling. We would love to partner with each John Carroll University students with the City of University Heights for the purpose of improving, reducing contamination of recycling, which is a big problem. I'm sure we'll hear about from our next speaker. Where we could really collaborate together to achieve the goals of your resolution and the goals that we have, which are one and the same. So thrilled if you've settled in University Heights. And when you purchase a home in University Heights, you'll be paying property taxes, one of the highest in the state of Ohio. So the residents of the city who have written emails to council and the mayor, I'm sure, and trust the council with their tax dollars to spend them wisely. So when we're asked to spend $250,000 plus perhaps for some personnel, that's a debatable thing, we have to look at the plan, we have to look at the metrics, we have to look at what's it based upon. And once that's provided, and once we actually have a solid plan, we would love to go forward with something that's reasonable. So no matter what is recommended at a committee minute, at a committee level, at a council level, do what you're doing. Talk to us in council, talk to administration, help us move forward. That would be a wonderful, wonderful questions and ideas. I don't need to be right. I just need to learn how to do things right. So I welcome.
Thank you so much for talking to us tonight. All right,
You can have the floor if you'd like.
for bringing up necessary comments to us. I apologize, I meant no disrespect.
That's okay, you're busy, maybe you were at finals or something. Or, the
That's
state
true, yeah.
Patrick's Day.
Yeah. But as John Carroll students, what we want to see, regardless of whose resolution it is or whose proposal, we want to see a fix altogether in the city, no matter what form that takes.
I'll just add that as members of the Jesuit Catholic University, we have an obligation to care for our common home. That's a big principle in really any Jesuit education that we are taught, and we engage with that in our community. John Carroll has also signed on to the Laudato Si initiative of Pope Francis's, which calls for 7 years of action on our campus to improve the sustainability of our campus. So it's an issue that's at the heart of the mission of John Carroll University, and that, our administration has been really keeping in mind. We have lots of upcoming projects at our campus that are going to really have that at the heart of it, and any, new things that we're going to be seeing on campus have a sustainability focus. And we see it as the students that, the success of John Carroll relies on the success of University Heights and vice versa, which is really why we're here tonight and why we just wanted to share what we've been working on.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. I had some questions in additional to what Ms. Sachs asked. Mr. Malley, I appreciate what you said at the end about we don't care whose improvements to sustainability occur. We just want to see improvements. But that's not what your resolution said. Ms. Kilfoyle, could you please explain to me a little bit more about the as president, what the restraint that the university has placed or guidelines that the university has placed regarding your body's statements to influence public opinion versus, for instance, political action?
I would respond to that by saying, in our eyes, this may be viewed as a political issue by some, but to us as students, we don't see it that way. That's in our bylaws as a body. We are called a student government, student union, because that's what we see ourselves as. But we are a student government. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's any sort of political action. It's purely public opinion and a statement on behalf of the student.
And when I received that as a council person, I felt, while I appreciated the sentiment perhaps, I felt in this body. So when I hear what Matt said, and I know that you've had conversations, more casually with this decision, I know that the mayor had come to speak with you and I don't know what the body considers. I know that inside of the statement, you made several statements about as an independent body. Did you invite the vice mayor or any other members of council to present to you regarding the?
I'll speak as the author of the bill. As you mentioned, Councilperson Gould, that we're selecting a specific side, but I think that this just goes on to how passionate we are about this issue. We saw this as the best option forward, and if we're presented with other future best options, we are more than happy to listen to anything that comes down the pipeline. And again, as I mentioned to Councilperson Sachs, I'd like to reiterate that we mean no disrespect to any member of council here forward. We're just very passionate about these issues. We're advocates by nature. We want to see these changes made on a citywide nature because we love University Heights. And please, we want to speak to anyone. We want to hear all sides because we care about recycling. We care about the planet. We want to see. Yes, in all fairness, it does, but we picked that because we're passionate. We wanted to see change, and we know that that was laid out, and it was before council. So was that the most immediate fix? Well, there's immediate action by council. And regardless, we just want to see recycling improved on a citywide nature. I think.
Yeah, I'll just add that you referenced us as an independent organization, or I don't remember what you're. Well, we consider ourselves on one side, and that's the students of John Carroll University. Their interests are our interests, and Councilwoman Sachs, we appreciate your email, and we have had conversations about that, and we definitely intend on having multiple representatives at your
Beautiful.
Absolutely, and we look forward to working with everybody, and we recognize that that was not the intent of the bill that was read. We asked for action. That's what we meant by passing it. That's what the Senate meant by passing it. And that's what we hope that you will receive. And nothing other than action is what we hope you'll receive.
My question was about who was invited to your body to present. You heard from the mayor. Did you extend any invitation to other members of council, to any member of council to present? I know I wasn't invited.
For sure. Well, as we just heard from Vice President Kozlowski, we would love to hear from anyone now in the future to hear any sides of this issue. So from here on out, I don't want to speak. I'm not a member of the executive board, but I would say
Yeah, 100%. Consider the offer and the invitation. Say it again. Yeah, our meetings are public, and consider the invitation extended, and we would certainly love and look forward to hearing them.
So the mayor was the only one invited?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And in the last,
That wasn't like a secret.
No.
Yeah.
in the last year, we had a series of 2 years. We had a series of public hearings where we heard from University Heights residents regarding their concerns for the carts that were recommended in this budget item that you've advocated for. Did the body review those or have those before it in making its decision regarding the concerns of the citizens about their abilities to carry those down to specifically the elders in our community?
We have not been aware of those reviews in the past year, but I mean, we would love to see any information or any comments made by the public as possible.
I will just add that our role is on behalf of the student population in the neighborhood, in the community. So that's simply why we are here. I mean, everyone needs to be taken into consideration. That's definitely, I mean, by all means, we are all for that, but our advocacy is on behalf of the students.
I appreciate that. And again, my comments or questions really weren't to chastise you at all. I just wanted to understand better what you took into account. Because there are a bunch of elders that, I mean, Max, you were here at the last meeting.
Yeah.
You heard person after person after person. I'm concerned I can't take these barrels down. I'm concerned I won't be able to do this. I'm concerned I have physical ailments. I'm concerned I'll have to move. That was the nature of our, and it would be unlike, I know, Carroll students to be, to disregard that. So that you didn't know that wasn't presented to you. I just wanted to understand that better, because those concerns are something that weigh so heavily for me as a legislator, that I wanted to just understand better whether, as a legislator, that I wanted to just understand better whether or not that was presented to you and you had decided to disregard, or if this was something you hadn't even heard. So thank you for answering those questions. I'll return the floor.
Can I repeat? And Max did come back from the last council meeting and referenced that there were people that talked about this. No ill will in making any decisions on behalf of John Carroll students, but that's who we made our decisions on behalf of. Came here before us to speak on the issue of recycling or not recycling for students, and that's why we're here today.
Also, if I could add from, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Blacklock.
I'm sorry.
Signal earlier first.
I'm sorry.
We'll go to you, and then we'll go to you, Mr. Coon.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for your passion and for your dedication and for your hunger to learn more about government and how it affects our communities and how decisions affect everyone, including our student population, which are good neighbors of ours. You understand that we have to balance every decision with the financial end of it, and to be able to do things in a way that makes sense fiscally for all of those residents who pay really high taxes. I think we've mentioned that, and that, you know, we're looking for a solution the same way you are. All of us are just as passionate about it. My husband's sitting over there in the blue sweatshirt. What happens if you put something in the rubbish that belongs in the recycling? And what else? You don't want to hear it. Okay. So you get the idea. All of us are very committed to making recycling work in this community, but you know, we have to look at it in a much more global way, so that all of the pieces come together and we can accomplish it in a way that makes sense on a number of other levels that you're probably not aware of, but you're learning about. So we look forward to seeing more of you, and especially at Mrs. Sachs's meetings. I really thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Coon?
Yeah, just appreciate you coming here. I know that I came several months ago, back in October, November, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. You did have an open invitation, and I'm glad to see at least one of our council members did meet with you at some point. I appreciate the mayor's put together a formal proposal, and he put that out there in writing. I can appreciate why he would review that and wanted to be a part of it at the same time. Council has not had a formal proposal for as an alternative, but I appreciate you, the mayor, putting out there as what we can do. These are great options, and I appreciate the work, especially talking to Council Member Sachs for what she's done. She has some great ideas as well. I think we need to challenge ourselves for that, to find a way to do it better. And hopefully you're here for longer than 4 years, at least on the. Maybe you're part of John Carroll for 4 years, but you're from the community. Thank you for coming here. I appreciate the information brought forward, and
if I may add, as we hopefully challenge everyone on council, we appreciate being challenged as well. Being presented with new information is never a bad thing. We have to learn to grow as people, to grow as members of student government. It's essential to our jobs and to better represent the students. So I'm very appreciative that we've had an open, back and forth, respectful dialogue. And I hope that with any issue that may arise in the future, that forum will continue. And back to the main message at hand, recycling. We just want to reiterate that we don't want to see this go by the wayside.
Well, and to that end, I hope you'll stick around for the next presentation from Beth Bacons-Ringler, who is the executive director of the solid waste district, aka Yardage Cycles. So there'll be a lot of good information here as well. So please, if you can stay, take it in.
For sure. Okay. And again, Mayor Brennan, thanks so much for the invite tonight. Councilperson Sachs, thanks so much for your invite. For your meeting.
I would just add, this is for everyone. I am constantly plugging that our Senate meetings are every Tuesday at 5. We do have an open forum period. We are practically begging students to come to open forum and let us know what's going on. So they're public meetings, so that's always available. Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and we'd be happy with directions, delivered, and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Elizabeth Bacons-Ringler, Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District. You have the floor. Thank you.
Suzanne, can you hear me?
Ish.
Ish?
Speak loudly.
Okay, I'll yell. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to pass around some business cards here. And contact information will be at the end of the PowerPoint. So I'm here this evening because we've had several folks reach out to our staff, including myself, just inquiring about recycling in general and best practices, not only within Cuyahoga County, but within the industry in general. So I have a little agenda tonight. I hope to speak for about 20 minutes, open it up for about 10 minutes of question and answers at the conclusion. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are. We actually, myself and one of our staff members, Jessica Finos, who is the Assistant Director for the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District, accompanied Mr. Picorni for a morning, a good half a day, back in March. It was very cold. Just to see firsthand, we were pretty familiar, but we wanted to ensure that our observations and our report this evening were spot on. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of recycling currently, both locally and globally, and then what is the future of recycling both locally and globally, and then some considerations for you as council this evening. So we are the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District. We are our own independent political subdivision. Our boundaries do not mirror that of Cuyahoga County. We are a little different. We are what is called an enterprise fund, which means that we are basically a business. We have to raise enough money to operate, and we are a creature of statute created under House Bill 592 a number of years ago. back in the late 80s. And House Bill 592 was created by our legislators in Columbus as a response to, I don't know how many of you may or may not remember, the garbage barge that sailed off New York and around the world and came back and was looking for a home. So at that point, Ohio was very concerned as to imports of solid waste from neighboring states and wanted to make sure that Ohio was considerate of managing its own solid waste, trying to divert as much as it can from landfills, encouraging recycling. And so we are the political agency that tries to help our 59 communities reduce, reuse, and recycle. And actually make Cuyahoga County a place of zero waste. I'm going to bring a little show and tell out real quick, so be right back. I don't travel anywhere. Always have a car that carries this stuff.
I was going to say, what are you doing?
Pardon me?
I was going to ask what you drove.
Yeah, I drive off on a hatchback. So. This is a 64-gallon wheel recycling cart and a plug to Honda. It can hold up to 96, but anyways. What I wanted to do was this evening begin with kind of a quick review of your current system. You may be intimate with it. Some of you may not. If you work, you may put things out and magically they disappear by the time you come home, and you may not be intimate with all of the operations. I am kind of an operations and data geek, just to let you know. So I promise not to get too into the weeds. Currently, for your, you have what has been referred to as side door or back door collection. That's kind of a nomenclature in the industry. Currently, the way your system works is on your designated collection day, you put your bagged recyclables in a blue bag out at your side door or back by your garage, as well as your containers for rubbish. And your ordinances do speak to the fact that your garbage can is supposed to be beyond a certain size, or nor is it supposed to weigh beyond a certain weight. Those are all to help protect your workers, by the way, just not an arbitrary thing. Those types of constrictions are actually industry-wide. And what you have in your current ordinances are pretty standard for manual collection. The way your system works is there's a set of 3, it's a team of 3 that goes down any street on a given day. You have collection Monday through Thursday, and on each of those days you run 2 routes. So you've got 2 different teams of 3 people each working on collecting both your rubbish and your recycling. So what you will have is you will have what's called a rear load packer garbage truck stationed somewhere on your street, and working with that driver are 2 other workers who drive Kubotas. So those are the little scooters that go up and down your driveway. The rear load packer truck holds a capacity of about 25 cubic yards. Your dumpster bed in the back of your Kubota holds 2 cubic yards. On the front of your Kubota, you have managed to fasten 2 35-gallon carts for the collection of recyclables. And those Kubotas will run up and down each driveway collecting materials. Just some other information, currently your disposal rate is at $41.20 a ton. You are part of the Eastside Consortium, but we'll come back to that point later. And your materials, once collected and your routes of rubbish are done, are actually driven to Republic's Glen Willow transfer station, where those street trucks deposit that rubbish that's been collected here within your community, and then it's bundled up again and driven to a landfill. Your rubbish driver drives about 29 miles round trip from your community to Glen Willow and back. Here are some pictures of what the system actually looks like. I mentioned that garbage truck is a rear load packer. It's called that because it collects just like a books. We're not too clever in the solid waste industry. We kind of call it as we see it. And so all of the rubbish goes directly into the back. There's a blade for compaction. And then you also utilize, those are pictures of your Kubotas that run up and down the driveway. So that's pretty much routine. A driver that you see there in kind of the lime green, as well as a couple of drivers of the Kubotas. You can see in the far left picture that on the front of your Kubotas, you've got two 35-gallon containers that have been attached to the front for the placement of recyclables. In the back, you can see in that middle picture, is that 2 cubic yard hopper that collects the rubbish. So as each of those little scooters goes up and down the driveway, which they back in, by the way, they will place the recyclables in the containers on the front. They will place the rubbish in the hopper in the back. And as you can see on the picture in the far right, when capacity is reached, both in the hopper as well as in the front, they will back up to the parked rear load trash truck, and that hopper actually tips into that. Now, there are some industry issues here in this collection system, and I'm just going to touch on a couple, and then at the conclusion we'll talk more about those. The solid waste industry is the 4th most dangerous profession in the United States. It's only behind coal mining. And one of the #1 reasons is that the #1 reason for death on the job in solid waste is contact human to equipment. And I want to point out, for example, on the far right, you've got the driver operating a hopper and a scooter backing into a piece of equipment. I want to point that out because things we're going to talk about later comes back to the safety of personnel. Recycling is obviously tandem with this collection system. You use the Kubota, as I mentioned. You've got 2 35-gallon containers actually bolted to the front of your Kubotas. That's where you place your bag, blue recyclable material, which I have an example of on the floor, in those. So your ordinance actually says you're to use 10-gallon blue bags. What we actually witnessed on the street is the use of 30-gallon blue bags, which is one I have here on the floor. And so kind of logistically, that creates a bit of a pinch point, because if you're collecting one of those from each household, you're only going to get 2 households, basically a blue bag in each one of the front of those containers. And you have a picture here. Oops. As you can see, your staff is very creative in how to try and get more than 2 blue bags on a Kubota at a time. I'm going to go back this way. Again, unfortunately or fortunately, with the current system that you implement, cardboard, which is increasing, we call it the Amazon effect as an industry, and we don't anticipate that that will be going away anytime in the near future. It's difficult to collapse large boxes like I brought into the blue bags. Therefore, right now, collapsed cardboard is put into the hopper on the back of the Kubota, and unfortunately, as you saw in this system, cardboard that is in the hopper ends up going into the rubbish. So even though residents may be placing it out separately for recycling, unfortunately, currently it's going into the rubbish. And so, again, the recyclables are collected when it reaches a specific kind of volume. The recyclables are then placed in a pile about every 5th house, and left there for collection later. What occurs is that rubbish is pretty much wrapped up by lunchtime of every day, and those trucks are then taken to that transfer station that I mentioned earlier. Once they return, those vehicles are then used to go back through the city to collect these piles of recyclables. Basically, with recyclables, you are touching that blue bag 3 different times. Currently with your system, you are picking it up from the side of the house, you are putting it in the container on the front of your Kubota, and then you are taking it from that, placing it on the lawn about every 5th house, and then after lunchtime, when the driver comes back to collect the recyclables, to take them to the recycling processing facility, they are picked up a 3rd time and placed in the back of the rear load packer. Currently, you are driving to Kimball Companies, which is located in Twinsburg. As part of the Eastside Consortium, you chose to take advantage of this processing facility. It is approximately a 40-mile round-trip drive where the blue bags are taken to Twinsburg for processing, and you are currently paying in this 2nd year of the contract $98.88 per ton to have those recyclables processed. And again, this is just some of the visuals that we snapped the day that we were in the field. As also part of your solid waste management programming, you do offer yard waste collection, which I will say is a lovely benefit. Not all communities have the depth and staff to be able to offer that. Currently, you ask your residents to, please bundle brush in like 4-foot lengths, wrap it up, and either to use metal or weather-resistant plastic containers to put loose yard waste in, as well as you can use craft bags that you can purchase at the store for your yard waste. You do need to put those at the curb, or if you have a huge amount, due to storm damage or whatever, you do have to call us a special pickup for management of that. Here are some pictures of yard waste. This one on the bottom kind of captured it all. Some of the bundles, some of the loose in a can, as well as a craft bag. And an example of somebody doing a very good job bundling their yard waste. The last part of your system is special pickup. Again, this is a nice service that you offer your residents. There is a fee, but it does allow your residents to be able to manage, goodness forbid, you have a flood, you've got some damp carpet to get rid of, you may have, a piece of furniture that you need to get rid of. So it's a very nice luxury that you can call your service department, schedule this, and they will come fetch this either from your door or your curb. And, as we've all gone through the pandemic or just through life in general, sometimes you just need to move things along. We would hope that you, of course, repurpose those first, but we know you do. So, just in case they're on their last leg and make it to the curb, this is a nice service. I did want to touch a part to provide a background on the evolution of recycling programs nationally and specifically in the state of Ohio. Back in the early 80s, when the solid waste districts began to evolve and become active in each of the communities, just to let you know, Cuyahoga County is a single county solid waste district. We have 88 counties in Ohio, 52 solid waste districts. So we're lucky in that we're a single county district. There are some, as you get kind of to the southwest and southeast, they are multi-county districts. In the early days, it was what was called source-separated recycling. And that meant that you may have multiple bins, and in each bin, you put a specific commodity. Sometimes you had to take those to drop-offs, where you put those in individual drop-offs. Sometimes, if you're lucky enough, you could have it collected from your curb, all of your pails or your bins. And the picture on the right and the top is it was a curb sorting piece of equipment. So some of these were trucks, some of these were trailers. What would happen is, as you can see there, maybe your bin of glass would be picked up, and then that driver of that piece of equipment would put all the glass in the glass compartment, or all the cardboard in the cardboard compartment. By the 1990s, the system was very laborious. very intensive with labor, very expensive. And so come about the early 1990s, there was this idea of what was called dual stream. Also, one of the things about solid waste is it's not a static industry. There have been developments in the industry for the sorting of recyclables, and the MRF itself, Material Recovery Facility, is becoming more automated and less manual in the sorting of those commodities. So a dual stream developed, and you can see the picture in the middle on the right. Many programs had tubs or bins, and you would put all of your fiber products in one. So that would be your newspaper. That was back in the days when newspapers were still popular. Your catalogs, your junk mail, and what cardboard you might have. And then in the second bin was what was called either rigids or containers. So that you would put your glass or your plastics, you know, your laundry detergent, your water bottle, your shampoo, aluminum cans, steel cans, in that. The recycling trucks had developed just as the sorting of the material had developed. And now instead of having multiple containers into which to sort, the trucks really had boiled down to two compartments. So you had a compartment for fiber and a compartment for rigids or containers. Then come the early 20s, the private sector solid waste industry began to see a great deal of injuries. As you can imagine, you know, recycling is most successful when it is convenient, but you know, lifting heavy bins began to cause injuries as well as, you know, emptying them into these containers. So the private sector decided that they wanted to create a system called single stream. This would protect the workers in particular. It would present a container where you could put loose, unbagged, commingled recyclables. And the automation at the material recovery facility advanced so it could be sorted that way, as well as the trucks, as you can see on the far right, had developed where you could have fully automated or semi-automated collection of these carts where they could be tipped. The fully automated functions, the driver never leaves the car or the cab of the truck. He pulls up, the articulating arm goes out, grabs the cart, dumps the contents, puts it right back. And so this has actually become the industry standard nationally, is curbside automated collection. And what I wanted to show you is, albeit this is an old piece, this is from 2014. Kindle is your recycling processor, so I did want to share with you, in the event you have not ever been able to get into a material recovery facility, and a lot of them have discontinued tours because of COVID. But I wanted to share with you this and one other video so you can have some idea of once your recyclables get to a material recovery facility, what is done with them. In Northeast Ohio, we have 4 waste haulers that service Cuyahoga County: Waste Management, the Public Services, Rumpke Recycling, and Kimball Companies. And we have, each of those are what are called fully integrated companies. They offer collection for both recycling and solid waste. They have recycling facilities in the area, and they also have transfer stations and landfills. So without ado, I'm going to see it. I'm hoping Don works, if not, I'm going to YouTube. Oh.
If he doesn't work, he's coming to our service and utilities committee meeting on May 3rd.
Yeah, I have.
The cursor is on the bar.
I never played TV on electronic movies. we're going to go a little out of order. This was the second video I wanted to show. This is the City of Phoenix Material Recovery Facility. And I'll talk to
Welcome to the North Gateway Transfer Station and Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF, one of the two facilities that handles the City of Phoenix's trash and recycling. The trash trucks deliver their collected materials to the transfer stations. The trash is then loaded onto long-haul trucks to be sent to the city's landfill. And now the fun part. Let's talk about recycling. The recycling trucks deliver their collected materials to the MRF. Here, people and equipment sort the commingled recyclables into different categories to be sold. The recycling trucks empty all the recyclables onto the recycle tip-board. Then, a large machine called a loader scoops up the material and loads it into a drum feeder. The drum feeder regulates the flow of the material, spreading it evenly onto the conveyor belt, making it easier for the mechanical sorters to see the material. This conveyor belt feeds all the commingled materials into the recycling facility where the sorting process begins. The first stage of the sorting process is a pre-sort, where workers pull out materials that are not supposed to go in the recycling container. A lot of effort is spent by sorters removing things like plastic bags, cords, and hoses that clog up the machinery. Pre-sort is one of the most important steps in the process to ensure equipment and machines run smoothly and staff is kept safe. Next, the recyclables drop into a series of disc screens and a ballistic separator that separate out 2D material, like paper and cardboard, from 3D material, like plastic bottles and metal cans, using gravity as well as large metal and rubber rotating discs and paddles. The heavier 3D materials fall to the bottom, while the lighter 2D materials are pushed over the top of paddles and discs. The disc screens are one of the primary reasons why soft plastics, like plastic grocery bags, can't be recycled in your blue recycling container. When something like a plastic bag or garden hose gets into the disc screens, it gets hot and clogs the machines up to 2 to 3 times a day. When that happens, the entire recycling operation is shut down because workers have to climb into the machinery and cut everything out. This is why recycling right is so important. Now that the paper materials are sorted out, the recyclables go through the glass crusher. This machine uses thick steel discs to crush glass bottles and jars. Broken glass falls through the conveyor and is then transferred to concrete bays where it is stored until it is picked up by a local glass recycler. After glass is removed, recyclables are sent to a series of optical sorters that use cameras and near-infrared sensors to separate certain types of paper from plastic. When it detects the material it's looking for, it ejects it onto a separate belt with short bursts of air. After the optical sorters, paper and plastic are further sorted by workers to ensure the maximum amount of any metal recyclables move under a magnetic belt and over an eddy current. First, the materials pass under the magnetic belt, which attracts any magnetic metals, such as steel from cans. Any metal that is not magnetic continues to be eddy current, which sorts the non-magnetic metal, like aluminum, by creating an alternating electromagnetic current. These types of metals are repelled by the current and fall over onto a separate conveyor. The equipment and workers are not always able to separate all the materials properly. After going through the eddy current, any leftover material is considered residue and ends up on the reject, which is routed back to the transfer station side of the facility to be landed. Now that all the recyclables are sorted, they are temporarily stored into bunkers. As a bunker reaches capacity, a message is sent to the facility operator to trigger the bunker door to close. The material is fed into a horizontal baler that compacts the material into big cubes called bales. The bale is wrapped in wire to hold its shape and then given one final inspection to make sure no contamination is happening. The bales are moved to a staging area where they are stored until they are picked up and shipped from the manufacturing facility to be made into new products. Thank you for exploring the North Gateway transfer station. If you would like to learn more or take a tour of the transfer station and recycling facility in person, please visit us at phoenix.gov/recycle or call 602-262-6251.
While we're figuring how to go back to PowerPoint, that Thank you so much. We went over this, I'm like, all right, what if I can't get enough to the PowerPoint? Anyhow. So the reason I showed you Phoenix is I spent 8 years working for the City of Phoenix Sanitation Department. This is one of 2 recycling facilities the City of Phoenix operates for their constituents. And there's also a waste management and Republic recycling facility of similar size out in Arizona that deals with the recyclables. Kimball's material recovery facility is very similar to this. Material recovery facilities become highly automated, where now the humans are really just quality control folks. So I wanted to show that to you because the Kimball movie I had was from 2014. When it comes to industry, as I was mentioning, the industry, which consists of the National Waste and Recycling Association, which is all the private sector haulers, and SWANA, which is the Solid Waste Association of North America, which are basically all the government entities, the self-collectors. Nationally, they what they have done is the industry standard in both of those organizations is a curbside collection program. It provides efficiencies for the collector as well as the community in which it is being collected. It increases recycling due to the capacity and the convenience of it, and most importantly, it protects the worker. I don't know if any of you heard of the Recycling Partnership, but they are a national organization also. They are funded by large corporate donors such as Coke and also Waste Management. You can go to their website, they're called the Recycling Partnership. And so their comment is switching to a curb-based system can help communities save money, improve the safety of its collection workers, divert material from landfills, bolster participation rates, and be more environmentally friendly. So that's the current situation. And then you say, okay, well, where do we go from here? So as an industry, and just to kind of let you know, everything kind of starts on the coast, both east and west, and eventually makes its way to the great Midwest, is actually a 3-cart system. We have examples both on the east and the west coast, where in order to try and divert as much as possible from the landfill, and the carts really are represented in size, as you see on the left. Organics is the largest fraction of the waste stream, and organics is both yard waste and food. Thus the green cart, recycling, is blue, and a smaller gray cart is what should be absolutely kind of the positive last choice, which is the landfill. Just wanted to share with you, we have 59 communities in Cuyahoga County, 57 of which have recycling programs. Currently, unfortunately, we've got 2 communities that do not, although one is working its way towards getting its recycling program up and running again. Of the 57 communities that have recycling, 46 employ automated recycling using carts and collection methodologies at the curb. One has recycling with carts at the side or back door. Just to let you know that that community actually is Hunting Valley, where they have very long driveways of 300 plus feet in length. And in good or bad, they pay for that service. They actually use little baby rear load packers to run up and down the estates there. We do have one community that uses 5-gallon pails, of which I brought an example. That community asks you to please put loose recyclables in as many pails as you need. We have 3 communities that utilize blue bags at the sidewalk, which you are one. There are 5 communities that utilize blue bags where they are collected from the curb. And then we have one that actually still uses bins, like a blue bin on the bottom. One of the things that I did want to share, and I don't know if you all have been intimate with your analysis that GT Environmental did. So they first completed this for you in 2009. They updated it for you in 2019 and presented findings to you in the spring, right after COVID hit, 2020. In that document, they did provide you a variety of operational recommendations and a full economic analysis for possibly exercising those options that they placed in that document. They did provide you 11 operational things to consider in that document. So next steps, why am I here? One of the reasons is, as the district, we are here as free consultants. We are to try and guide our communities to reduce as much as they can on landfill reliance and to implement best available technologies. We do provide free consulting services for our staff. Most of our staff has over 20 years of experience in the industry. I've got over 30. But and one of the things that we wanted to let everybody know is we do have a toolkit at the district that is available for any one of the communities to utilize. It helps explain how to recycle right. The toolkit provides, basically a template as to how to create a flyer. It has graphics, that type of thing. So that is available for you to use, and that was really your first option in the GT environmental proposal. So there's no cost to that. And Christy from our office can help you snag all the appropriate documents off our web, and you can utilize those in your printed publications or on your website or in your social media applications. Step 2 is, which was also listed in the GT proposal, was to conduct a survey to see the temperature of acceptance of changing your programming here in the city. One of the things that the district would like to propose is actually putting together a survey. Now, one of the things in evaluating any programming is also, putting that in context of what you spend. Cuyahoga County is really unique. Cuyahoga, Franklin, and Hamilton County are very unique in that the majority of their solid waste programming comes out of the general fund. So these are not programs that are what I would call an enterprise fund. The majority of other counties in the state, they operate their solid waste programming just like you would sewer water. You need to make enough money to operate just like a business. Here it is all conglomerated together in the general fund, but I do think in order to make an economic analysis, you do need to do a full cost accounting of what it currently costs you to do your system the way you were currently doing it, and then what that would look like if you chose to implement any one of a variety of options. So, just here to let you know that we're here to help however we may, and if you are interested in having us oversee and underwrite a survey, please let us know. We'd be more than glad to move ahead on that. And with that, I can take questions.
Thank you. And I would like to say that I am interested in seeing the solid waste district underwrite and conduct the survey. I want to be sure that we're all clear on where I stand. So thank you. And I'll defer and let others ask questions.
Before I monopolize the questions, maybe someone else would like to go, but I would be glad to start, if you don't mind. Sherry Sachs, we've spoken on the phone. We had almost an hour discussion, right? Remember that? Appreciate that you're here. Sorry I didn't hear back from you about coming to the invitation to the May 3rd meeting. Yeah, I sent you and Jessica an email and I followed up with a call. Okay. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, great. So many things to talk about. Again, I'll start with the conclusion or whatever where we're thinking of going at this point, which I mentioned before with the John Carter University students. My conversation with you, my conversation with Don Johnson convinced me that loose recycling is the way to go. I brought it up at the last committee meeting, and we were all in agreement to consider it. So thank you. The visual helps also, but I think even without the visual, you did a good job convincing me about that. So thank you. You are spot on. We need to hear from our residents. We need to hear what they prefer in terms of continuing the call it backyard, so you'll forgive me, side door collection versus to the curb. We have many people that Councilman Gould referenced who have reached out to council and administration and actually are part of public record that it would be a hardship to take these bins down the driveway, many of which are winding, they're elevated, the weather, Mr. Pokorny's staff does a great job with snow plowing, and it makes it even more challenging to bring it down to the curb. And in the absence of that, it's really not going to happen for us to move to curbside collection. Just with your offer, your generous offer to do the survey, I believe that was my question to you and to you and Finos. And I believe Councilman Gould followed up with a discussion with Ms. Finos. I'm surprised that you're not aware of either of those discussions, but you can speak to that after. And I'm wondering, if you do assume this, which I'm thrilled that the mayor is inclined to consider, I wonder who writes your survey to ensure that it's valid and reliable?
Well, we would have to put it out for quotes. This would be a service, and we would have to ask for quotes from consultants to assist us with that. We do a lot of survey work ourselves. For example, we have to statutorily survey all of our residential, commercial, and industrial sector clients annually and report to the EPA. So we do have some actual surveying expertise on staff, but we would have to put together a scope and roll it back to see what responses we could get and then the pricing associated with that.
So I believe that you have the survey that we already commissioned and paid for in your possession.
I believe there's a draft survey in
I think that was it. I think that's it. It's final, and it was paid for and legislated. So this is an interesting twist. But anyways, we can follow up on that. And thank you. So what is the recycling rate goal? What is your goal for communities? Is it 100%? Is it, what is it?
Actually, it is set by the state, the OEPA. As solid waste districts, our residential and commercial recycling rate, is a combined rate between both of those sectors, is 25%.
And you are from, this is your 2020 report. So I looked at this and I counted it up, and I actually spoke with you and Jessica about this to make sure that I understood what it was. And I found it, why do you think that none of these cities meet the 25% except for one, which is Chagrin Falls? And as you said, 46 of, I forgot, but a high percentage have the curbside automated recycling, and yet they don't meet the goal. So that's number one. I looked at this and I see that we were at 5%. The 2021 doesn't actually come out till June, I'm told. But we were told by the mayor repeatedly that it's going to be 4%. So we accept that. We are concerned that under his administration it's gone backwards when there are many recommendations, and we can talk about the solid waste study recommendations that actually have, I think, 6 recommendations out of 7 that can be implemented with backyard collection. So why that hasn't begun, I'm not sure. And then I looked at who are the other side door collectors. We have Shaker Heights and Pepper Pike. And so I went to visit them because their rates are twice ours. One is 9%, one is 11%. And I discovered some really interesting best practices. I'm not sure if you're aware of them.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And I brought them to committee, and they fell on deaf ears. So that's, but they will be a formal recommendation, perhaps because it was only suggestion and observation, but there was no feedback or discussion about it, just kind of laid on the vine. Other cities that have been brought to our attention are South Euclid, that has a bright green node, and Beechwood. Well, South Euclid is only 10%. It's less than Pepper Pike. Beechwood is only 13%. And by the way, 41 of the 59 are at or less 13%. So I wondered, and I'll ask you because the mayor said I shouldn't be analyzing it myself. So I wonder if 69% of our community, our cities that wheel these down to the curb and have either manual, semi-automated, automated, I can't imagine they're manual, nobody can lift it up. Why is it, I mean, how can you convince us that that's the way to go, to invest $250,000 plus other costs that you talk about when you want to be in the survey? When we can continue with backyard recycling, loose recycling with some best practices, and almost need the same amount as 69%, more than 2/3. Can you comment on that? Am I misreading that?
Sure. First of all, the recycling rate that is in the recycling report is not just all curbside, by the way.
Okay.
It includes any recycling done by the community. So
right. Oh, that's a great point.
So that is not just curbside. So it would, the recycling report that we send to each community, we ask them to delineate, and those are due to us, because we have to incorporate that information that's due to the EPA by June 1st, which is why we don't subsequently release that report until afterwards, because we have a statutory deadline where we have to, compile data from over 43,000 commercial entities and 18,000 industrial.
Sure. Oh my goodness.
59 cities. Yeah. So that is inclusive. Now, each community has a very different program, meaning not only are some of the recyclables that are collected in the communities not all the same, depending on the material recovery facility that they use, but they may also have robust drop-off sites or not. And I think a good reflection, if you look at that report, you could point to the yard waste. Some communities have robust yard waste management programs, others don't. So why worry about a cart other than it is to the safety of your collectors, and you are a self-collector. So, it is a dangerous job. For example, one of the things both of the public sector and the private sector organizations will tell you that you should never back a vehicle up. And, unfortunately, your Kubotas are running up and down driveways backwards. They're interacting with traffic. The cart would allow greater capacity than currently a blue bag. The other issue is, and I wanted to show the movie from Phoenix. I don't know if you remember the beginning of the pre-sort where things were supposed to be removed off the line that aren't You saw the guy taking I don't know if you caught the baby seat being pulled off the line at that point. It's at that point that blue bag materials are open. Your blue bag materials, whether it's here or elsewhere in the state, they're not run individually. They're run with all the other recyclables that go into that material recovery facility. Some of the blue bags break open, which liberates that material for sorting. Others aren't, and it's at that pre-sort station where hopefully things can be ripped open. But if they are not liberated at that point, the material typically doesn't get liberated the rest of the way through. So with carts, the material could be loose. And when it comes to utilizing carts for the safety of employees, increasing capacity, also keeping materials dry. Currently, you're not capturing a whole lot of your cardboard, unfortunately, because of the capacity issue, because of the blue bags. There are other programs throughout the state that utilize sidewalk collection and carts. So our job is just to present, best practices within the industry. It is your choice to do with. When it comes to the $250,000, I believe I mentioned to you in our call that there is grant money available to subsidize. The state of Ohio, through the Ohio EPA, does offer an annual grant. The grant application process begins in the fall of every year. The deadline is early February of the subsequent year. The state runs mid-year to mid-year. So, for example, in this grant cycle, we're waiting to hear awardees any moment now from the application process that started last fall. Money is then available from July 1st of the year through June 30th of the following year. And that could be up to $200,000 worth of funds for underwriting equipment and containers for recycling. And that is the EPA's push, is to go with industry standard in the state. Additionally, the Recycling Partnership also offers an additional grant. They provide some dollars per cart for the rollout of new programs. And I believe that is a rolling application. So there is money.
No pun intended.
Oh, that good point. Very good.
I'm listening.
That is also available to help defray costs. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
That's great. Mayor Brennan serves on your solid waste policy committee, correct?
Correct.
Would he know about those grants?
Not necessarily.
Okay. But that would be helpful because I brought that up and I've been told, it's too expensive, I've been told all kinds of things. What is your opinion about the service yard to have additional options for bins for recycling clothing and cardboard and paper and cans and even solid waste? What's your opinion about that?
Your service yard is...
No, not now. Nothing, yeah. But we're planning a facilities assessment, and I brought up at the first meeting that there was not enough space for that, and I was told, no, we're not doing that. So I'm just curious, is it something we should plan for? To improve different options, and that was, I think, what you were saying before. It's more than just available from the
So, yeah, I had a hard time finding that because my busy.
Yeah.
But if you're planning to greater facilities, one thing you do need to worry about any drop-off program is the potential for major contamination. Just an FYI, the communities that operate drop-offs in conjunction with their curbside programs, they usually operate those in a service yard during hours that the service yard is open.
Yes.
So there could be a watchful eye.
Yes.
Coming from other areas, I can tell you, if you just simply place drop-off bins.
No. To your point, that's part of the best practices, to have it a little bit
Controlled,
controlled and visible right
yes.
there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Pepper Pike does an excellent job with that Shaker Heights, and they do it different ways. Right. They're fascinating, and they have some checks and balances in there that are interesting.
And it's a commitment for drop-off.
I think it's all a commitment. The whole thing's a commitment, right?
I live in a community, unfortunately, that doesn't have curbside, so I have to, load my recyclables into the back of my car, drive to a drop-off, empty the contents.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting one over the other, but it would be to combine.
Yeah, and so or drop off. It is more of a commitment on the residents' part than having something shipped directly from their yard.
I sat there in the service yard and watched on a Tuesday morning, just drive through. And I said, what is this? Some people, for whatever reason, have different options. Okay. Do you think that contamination is a systemic problem?
It's a systemic problem.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, which is one of the reasons I showed that, I certainly heard of the China sword. Maybe that was where we as, not necessarily in the Midwest. That's one good thing about being in the Midwest is we're in the Midwest. The bad thing about being in the Midwest is we're in the Midwest. But along the coast, a lot of the recyclables were shipped to overseas markets. And due to that contamination from some of that program is why the Asian Rim communities said we're not taking their materials anymore. And if you go back and Google China sword, it will tell you. I always look for a bright side in things. What that has done is put a push on domestic market development, which is great. Now, the one thing I can tell you about the Midwest is our stuff never went overseas because we're just too far buried inland to have ever gotten it that far. But the effects it did have on some of the coastal recycling programs, the good effect is it boomeranged back for domestic market development. So, anyways, so contamination is systemic.
How do you address it? Well, we had Sharon Miller here, and she was wonderful.
Yeah, education. Recycling education is something that is not a one and done effort.
I couldn't agree more. I would love to see it in the mosaic every issue. I'd love to see it at the Friday wrap up every time. And every opportunity, just put a little, even the link to your website, so easy, what can I do with? Can I recycle this?
And so, making a successful program is a combination of knowing how to recycle right, as well as getting the participation. And so that it's a combination.
So let's talk about participation.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we don't know how many people participate. We've never been told. However, I think it would be easy to get. That information would be simple. We know who did. It could be a checklist for the collectors. It could be the John Carroll University students doing a project over the course of whatever time period. Okay, if we knew the number and we knew the households, the addresses, we could do targeted education to reduce the contamination and start there with the low-hanging fruit. Those are people who are participating optionally. I kept saying it wrong. I kept saying opt-in, and I now found out that's a real program. That's a terrible program. So we're not doing opt-in. It's participation, but voluntarily. If people are already showing that they want to do it, and I'm Exhibit A, I've been doing it wrong until the day I met Karen Miller, and now I do it correctly, I recycle correctly. If you reach out to people, if we can do that, and even one-on-one, perhaps we could reduce the contamination and increase our rate right there. Then we could do outreach in different ways. This bin would be too large for the backyard, but there are different sizes, 32 gallon, whatever. It may not accommodate all the cardboard, but it sure could do a lot more. And again, with the education for people who participate, they might be more inclined to tie it up and to break it down and to do it and even to bring it to a yard. So, okay. I'm just trying to think what else there is. So yes, this is something I hadn't thought of. Are the accidents and injuries reported to Osha? Is it that type of a thing?
Well, it would be reflected in your workers' compensation.
Okay.
So,
do we know what how much injuries happened in University Heights?
I did not ask that question.
I don't know. Do we know?
We got people all right now.
I know. I don't know if that's what it's from or for something else.
I don't know. It's from picking up recycling.
For recycling?
And it's self-reported as injury for picking up recycling.
Okay. How is it compared to other communities? Because that's not what, Beth, okay. You were saying it was from backing up and it was from loading and not necessarily recycling.
Oh, it's from a myriad.
A myriad of things. It's not just from recycling. It's the nature of the work, is what I understood.
Right. So solid waste, it's, I mean, as some of those pictures show, you're bending over, you're pulling a bag out, you're putting it, it's manual.
So now it leads me to a best practice, a couple best practices that I've seen. Let's take Shaker Heights. They've taken out a lot of the manual because they retrofit, or whatever, they refit their own Kubotas on the back with 60-40 bins into trucks that are like that. So they have the loose recycling in the small bins. It may be a little bigger, and then it goes into the back, which is the same size as the Kubota. It's not wider, so it will not interfere with, because they also have narrow driveways in part of 44120 as you get closer to Chagrin, to Cleveland. And then it tilts into the truck. To your point, we could get this paid for. First of all, they do their own welding. So she said, told me, Patty Spies said that it costs hardly anything to retrofit the Kubotas. The trucks, though, with grants from Highway P or whatever, we may be able to pilot it. We may be able to do it. If we don't go that route, something like Pepper Pike, where they send the recycling truck out at the same time as the solid waste truck, and blue bags, they can never go to recycling because they have, at least at this point, the way their bins are, they're soldered in. But if we're able to empty out, or even now with blue bags until we would decide to change over, all the blue bags go into the recycling truck first, then the solid waste. That ensures that, oh well, we don't have enough room in the front, we'll just put it in the solid waste in the back. This way it goes first, it maximizes, and then the others collected. No double and triple and on the corner, and again, these are just best practices. We can be doing these today. And so it will come in a formal recommendation. I would love for you to think about that and call me before May 3rd or come to the May 3rd meeting. I don't need to be right. I just need to help get to the right spot. And if we could do loose, backyard, side door, recycling, at least to get started, to stop the needle from moving down 5% to 4%, oh my goodness, and stop the bleeding, that would be quite amazing.
So the kind of truck that Shaker uses is called a split body packer, and those are pretty expensive. Yeah, they all are. Yeah. So yeah, that would far surpass your $250,000. But
but it could
it could be partially paid for.
Reimbursed. You said, did you say Broadview Heights or something?
Correct. Right. Broadview Heights use the grants to pay for their perks. Yeah. Correct. So, and all of these grants, by the way, are reimbursement grants. Just to let you know, you have to spend the money up front, and then it's reimbursed after the fact. Both the I'm not certain about the recycling partnership one, but absolutely certain it's a reimbursement for the Ohio EPA.
And were you aware of any grants that have been awarded to implement a shaker-style system where we're splitting bins on Kubotas and splitting rear load packers? Have you ever seen that?
Not in Cuyahoga County. That doesn't mean there may have not been something somewhere else. Pardon me?
We could ask Shaker.
You could ask Shaker. I don't know if they received money from the state for that. The EPA, I will be honest with you, they are pushing for, as a best practice, curbside collection of both, garbage and recycling, tandem at the curb. So any program that embraces, any of those components, usually gets a higher ranking in the analysis. It is a competitive grant situation that the states are.
Thank you for your time.
I'm sure I heard that right. Best practices are curbside under these EPA grants.
Correct.
There are a multitude of best practices.
Some of them best.
Mayor?
Yes.
May I?
Yes, please.
Some comments? Thank you, Mrs. Diggins, for presenting here tonight. You're showing the generations of recycling, and it looks like we're in a somewhat worse version of the second generation, the 1990s to 2000. On another note, more lighthearted note, we had a gentleman address council a couple months ago, talking about how he took a burlap bag out to the curb filled with metals and everything during World War II. So it's even a previous generation of recycling there. But he spoke very passionately for the need for us to improve our current system. I appreciate that you mentioned the recycling partnership. I have learned so much from looking at that website and all the information that they provide. They talk about recycling carts, and cities that implement them can hope to see about 450 pounds of recycling per household. That the convenience of the cart, the capacity of the cart, actually having a physical vessel to put them in rather than having to seek out the guides, yield superior results, 450 pounds per household per year. I ran the numbers on 2021. University Heights collects about 150 pounds per household per year. So on education, I definitely think that education is something we need to be constantly going about. What I've heard, the best education tool that we have out there is direct feedback with residents. There was from my understanding, there was a program with the city of Brooklyn last year where insurance went out, including one of our John Carroll students, went out and reviewed the recycling that was in every cart at every household every week and provided feedback on what was supposed to be there. I believe they had a contamination rate of about 40% of the time, and at the conclusion of the summer, they reduced their contamination to under 20%. So
that is called a tagging program.
Yeah.
And that is probably one of the most effective ways to, as you said, it's that one-on-one contact because someone is looking into the cart, able to specifically identify, oh gosh, that quilt is not a recyclable item, marking it such.
Right. Yes. While we can kind of sort of see through our bags, it really wouldn't be a viable thing to try with our blue bag recycling.
And that's certainly how you would implement that.
Everything that I have seen, especially from Recycling Partnership and other cities that have been awarded grants for recycling cards, every single one of them.
To your point, how are you going to see through this bin? If we give 4,400 bins, but if we go, if we go to 4,400 bins, we purchase them for all our households, and X number don't participate, we don't know how many it is, but if I'm assuming the majority do not participate, they might say, oh, thanks, city, for giving me a garbage can, and put solid waste in there, and they would automatically contaminate. I worry about that.
The Recycling Partnership has numbers on that as well.
But I mean, in our own city.
18 gallon bin recycling bins and buckets. Versus the carts, you see maybe a 5% increase in contamination.
So in the committee meeting, I'll tell you how Shaker is able to do two quality assurance steps with their smaller ones. You can talk about it.
There's a way you can watch your recyclables, your recycling truck, whether you retrofit it with a tipper or go with a new one. And if you go with a new one, they all come with cameras on them and a hopper, so things can be, as a cart is lifted to be tipped, if it's a fully automated, they can see it from the top and put it back down before it actually is dumped. In the rear load, they would see it as it begins to be tipped, they could stop, and well, actually, at that point, if it's a semi-automated and someone's rolling it to tip it, so if you take your rear loads and retrofit them with a tipper, as soon as the worker flips the lid, they're going to be able to see right then and there if there's any contamination. So,
Okay.
So, I had just being involved and how easily you were able to wheel it over here. So I appreciate you coming and demonstrating that to us.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. This is for the council. Mr. Gould?
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time in the presentation. There have been, in the city, we commissioned as councilperson Sutton has done some work for the water district and various community research and surveys. The impasse that we're at is that the mayor won't send it out because there's not financial questions on there. Council specifically removed those because no one's intending to raise the taxes, and we don't want to scare our residents into thinking that their taxes are going to go up if they, choose one thing or the other on the survey. So we have an approved survey that council's approved. We funded it. We've authorized the mayor to send it out. He says the answers or the data that council wants is, as it is on the survey, is junk data. So when it comes to options which would move to a cart that are dead on arrival, there aren't those votes on council to pass a change from backyard trash pickup to curbside trash pickup right now.
okay.
But I would like to ask some questions about the system that we have now. What is the Eastside Consortium?
So the Eastside Consortium is a group of, I believe it is 8 or 9. They're all self-collectors. So, it's from Solon to U-All to Pepper Pike, and garbage is a volume, and when I say garbage, solid waste management is a volume-based industry. The more volume you can, present to somebody, the lower the price you should get. Big aggregation. Assembled a lot of the communities. At that time, we were seeing increases in landfill costs. And we said, okay, well, we recycling material together. What is the pricing you could offer? And on the recycling consortium side, there is a blue bag price. And because the material recovery facilities are set up for single stream loose recycling, so there is a premium for introducing additional labor to that, and then the loose recycling rate. These bids go out for 2-year terms, and then 2 1-year extensions. Each community enters into the contract directly with the supplier that the consortium has chosen. And so we are concluding in that consortium needs to reach out to both their rubbish, transfer station or depository, and their recycling processor to let them know whether or not they're going to participate in a new consortium bid that's going out, or so you provide notice on May 1st if you're going to do an extension year. The service provider has 30 days to respond as to whether or not they choose to exercise that option. So, a community can say, okay, I want to continue taking my recyclables to Kimball to go from there. The actual term concludes this fall, and so we are trying to kind of herd the cats to ascertain who is in or out of this year's consortium activity, so we can craft that document and prepare to get it out.
What were the processing options in the last bid cycle?
It was loose recyclables, so materials that would have been collected from a cart, or and then blue bag. So, you can deliver your recyclables to the material recovery facility loose, and then it's processed from there. That was one item to bid on. If you deliver the recyclables contained in blue bags, that was the second item to bid on.
How, if at all, does the solid waste district control or direct the options that are on the bid that the consortium sends out?
It's by, we don't control that. It's really a consensus of those participating in the consortium.
A bagged processing option?
It will be included. I can't guarantee whether you will receive responses for that service. We don't control that.
I don't understand. So, my understanding is that the solid waste district has informed the city of University Heights that future bids for recycling processing likely will not include a bagged processing option. The future bids. Did you inform us that future bids would not include a loose processing option?
No.
Or excuse me, a bagged processing option?
What I said is I can't guarantee there will be responses to that option.
I see. So the bid that goes out from the consortium,
Correct.
that bid can include the bagged processing option.
Correct.
There's nothing that the solid waste district has done to direct or to tell us that you're not going to send a bid that includes that option?
Correct. What I can't guarantee is because these material recovery facilities are set up to process loose single-stream recyclables. One, if they will, they could return a no bid option.
Sure.
Or they return an exorbitant price for the service, and that we have no control over.
Of course. And what the market, so the two options that we would have in order to maintain what we currently do would be to extend, if at the mutual agreement of us and our processor. If that does not work, do we still have time to go into the bid that goes out after that 30-day period?
You need to make the decision by May 1st. That was written into the document. So each community needs to alert their processor or disposal company at their intention to either, what they intend to do. And then it's a waiting game, see what happens. If, for example, if you said we're going to extend and Kimball comes back and says, no, I'm done, at that point, then we know that all those communities that we're going to extend can't, and we're going to have to include those listed for recycling.
Okay, so that was my question was, after that 30-day period, the window goes by, we can still go out with the consortium bid.
Correct.
Okay. And then, however, that does not mean that anybody in the market has to take us up on that bid. So they could say, Pepper Pike, University Heights, you want to go this bagged option? We're not bidding on that, sorry. Or consortium, you've gone out with this bid, we're not even giving you a price on that, we're not entertaining that at all.
Right. One of the things that we have seen in the area, not necessarily with blue bag, because this is very unique to Cuyahoga County, is through bulky items. Those that, which you don't, you collect your own bulky items. But for communities that contract out and have had bulky services, what we've seen is pushback by the private sector as to how that's managed, or just discontinuation of it altogether. So, and those that sector does because they have stockholders to report to, and they have staff that they worry about. So.
And then when, I'm sorry, just in that timeline, could you please say again, if you did already, the timeline which we would know that there's a zero bid on the blue bag collection?
Those bids will not actually, the term doesn't expire, I believe, until September 30th of this year. So the bid we hope to get out on the street, by the summer, we would open the bid, the communities would.
So midsummer we would get the return from the bids?
Yes.
Okay, so usually is that like July, August, or?
Right, yeah, we want to make sure that there's ample time, because the way the consortium works is that once the bids are evaluated and we distribute that information to each community then has to actually enter into, let's let's say it's Republic Services, has the best disposal and the best. We have to, as a city, enter into an individual contract with Republic Services for disposal and another individual contract with Republic Services for recycling. And we need to be able to get these answers to you all, because then, we know it needs to go through. Some communities will do a one-read emergency, option with council. Others, it requires 3 full readings. So trying to back that up from September, which is why we're trying to herd the cat's nest.
Okay, thank you for that. That's very helpful. I did want to follow up on a request, along the lines of what Councilwoman Sachs said, which is that while we are at this impasse, I think if the survey got sent as it is, you probably would have the votes on council to change the collection method. Even if it came back that most people weren't in support of that, I think you probably would have the votes to make that change, because there is such a compelling argument about what that means in other cities, what other cities have done, how we go about this and finding solutions towards that. But while we are at that impasse, when it comes to backyard improvements that could be made, if there are specific things that, if you are able to join us at the committee meeting to talk about, look, this is the industry standard, this is what we would like, everyone else has gone to curbside, we'd like you to be there at some point. But while you are not, here are things that you can do. I would really like to hear that, because I do think that there has been expressed by various members of council that while we are at this impasse, because we will not be moving from the backyard to the curbside without that survey being sent, we do have a stomach for investing in improvements in the backyard. I know the administration has said, no, we're not doing that, we're not exploring that, we're not going out, to ask for, grants that I don't think we're going to get back. But at least to have a plan that is, with your guidance, I think would be really helpful, so we can hear what those improvements might be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Ms. Biggins-Rain? Well, I'd like to say thank you for taking so much time with us this evening. I know that we initially discussed and thought it would be about 30 minutes, but well beyond that. But I think this is a fruitful discussion.
I don't get out often.
We're glad to
There's nothing more scenic than University Heights at 10:40 at night. So I don't know, partake in all the suns while you're here.
I enjoyed the ride,
Thank you for bearing with us during the earlier part of the meeting, and thank you for spending this quality time with us. And thank you for bringing the card.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take my choice.
All right, so next item on the agenda. Ordinance 2022-19 amending Ordinance 2022-15 authorizing permanent appropriations, current and other expenditures of the City of University Heights, Ohio for the period commencing January 1, 2022 and December 31, 2022 to increase ARPA budget by an additional $129,420 from Cedar Road project declaring emergency. This is an emergency, and Mr. Candy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to appropriate the additional money relative to the ODOT road resurfacing project. The permanent budget, which was passed at the beginning of March, included that initial allocation that was destined for the escrow account for ODOT. This additional money that was approved by the Finance Committee needs to be added to the permanent appropriations for the year. There's no other changes to any other portion of the budget. Just Fund 297, which will contain all the ARPA distributions from last year and this year.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Is there a motion?
What were, Mr. Kennedy, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
When it came to the initial award of ARPA dollars, so I understand why this is coming in. We've gotten a commitment from our county council person to give us some money. was there anything that needs to be officially budgeted or received in order to put this in here? Do you have letters of commitment or whatever it is that you usually would have for audit purposes to say this money is coming in like we got from the federal government?
I will, Councilman Gould, I'll amend the revenue estimates to include the projected revenue that we will receive tentatively from Cuyahoga County. I do believe that, if you defer to Luke, that once that money is offered to us, that council would be in a position to approve the acceptance of that claim.
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? And if not, is there a motion?
I'll move on emergency, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. We have a motion to approve on emergency by Mrs. Weiss. Is there a second?
I'll second on emergency.
And a second by Mr. Rock. Any discussion? Mr. Mercado, do we need 2 votes for this one? Two. Very good. All right, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the ODOT 18-21 winter contract from 2,300 tons to 2,303.19 tons? Mr. Corey.
This item is an item where I had purchased 103 tons more than what we had originally talked about on our purchase with the ODOT contract. So I had originally indicated to council that I would be purchasing between 1,800 tons and 2,200 tons. And this winter we actually purchased 2,303 tons. So I'm 103 tons over what I had previously estimated. That represents $3,857.30. This contract was through ODOT, but with Cargill salt, so I currently have an invoice waiting that I haven't been able to pay for Cargill.
Mayor?
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCourty. I'm sorry, who was that?
Mayor?
Oh, okay, Mr. Gould.
Is that just looking at item H, should that first number then be 2,200?
Yeah, the agenda says 2,300 and 2,303.19.
Okay.
Mayor, make a motion to authorize an increase in the quantity of road salt retroactively in the ODOT 18 to 21 winter contract from 2,200 tons to 2,303.19 tons.
Second, that would suffice. We have a motion by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. King. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I just have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Weiss.
Just curious, why the extra?
We had run out of salt in our salt barn here at UH. So when I filled it up, I refilled it and I ended up with 100 tons extra.
So,
I could have ordered 100 tons less.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
But I generally always order 200 or 250.
Typically you do that in, like you said, 200, 250. So instead of just ordering 100, you order the 200 or whatever.
Correct, I ordered 200, which actually took us over.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mrs. Blanco?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Very good, motion carries. Next item is item I, motion authorizing the city's participation in the ODOT 18-23 winter contract for road salt. Mr. Corey.
That is come up already. ODOT has put out a request to all cities in Ohio about participating in their contract. We have it until March. I think they just moved the date. It was originally the end of April, but we have until March 15th to indicate that we are participating with them, and that would require that the resolution be signed and sent back to them by that date. That process also requires that we estimate again how much salt we're going to use. So due to the last item that I was a little short on, this one I went from 2,000 tons, 2,000 ton gas to a 2,500 ton estimate. And that will provide us either 2,250 as a minimum up to 2,750 tons as a maximum. And I'm recommending that we participate with ODOT in their salt contract.
Very good, thank you, Mr. McCourty. Is there a motion to authorize the city's participation in the ODOT 18-23 winter contract for road salt?
Did you mean May 15th? You said March 15th.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. That's my question. Yeah.
Okay. Question.
Go ahead, Mr. Gould.
Do they just extend the date, the year numbers, or is there anything retroactive that we're changing? So in item H, we're retroactively going back and authorizing an additional amount, so it's the 18 to 21 contract. Is that 2018 to 2021?
No, it's the 18 is their bid item. It's actually 018.
Okay.
And they have the year.
Thank you. That helps me understand.
Very good, thank you. Are there any further questions? And if not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion approved by Mrs. Weiss. Is there a second?
Also moved.
Okay, second by Mrs. Kleinfeld. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mrs. Blanco?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Okay, very good, motion carries. Next is item J, motion to authorize seeking bids for one Kubota utility refuse collection vehicle. Mr. Picorni.
Purchase of this vehicle is necessary because we have 6 vehicles and they rotate every 6 years. These vehicles barely make the 6-year mark, and so it's pretty much critical to me from an equipment standpoint. This is probably one of the most important equipment purchases for the year. Unfortunately, I had given this to finance. It was on my list of items that was supposed to be funded and did not receive funding. So I'm now requesting that we budget for it, and if we have to, I will not purchase the wood chipper, and in its place I'll purchase this Kubota instead. But I wanted to make council aware of that rather than just doing it.
And just to clarify, the amount that's budgeted for the wood chipper is well in excess of what we would pay for a Kubota. So
Yes, the wood chipper was budgeted at $40,000. This will probably be at 19 to 20. Actually, all of our previous bids on these have been in the 16 range, but with what's been going on lately with purchased vehicles, we're estimating it's going to be higher. Also, for council's knowledge, the last one we purchased took a year to get, so it just came in a month ago, even though we had done this process a year ago. That was another reason I wanted to get this moving.
So this amount was not in the original budget that was presented to the finance committee?
It was. As a matter of fact, I attached the memo and the items that we had talked about. So the very next page gives you all the items.
But if whatever draft the finance committee was given, no capital equipment items were taken off. So,
This was,
yeah.
the 5-year capital plan included a Kubota in 2020, and, 2021, 2022. We bought 2 last year. So because that was an accelerated acquisition, I didn't include it in for this year.
Okay, I understand that.
Mr. Picorni?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Gould.
I know that there have been some discussion about trying to obtain hybrid versions of these. Do you get like those product catalogs from them? Are there, and also do you know if they've been implemented anywhere with success, like the Kubotas that run off of alternate fuels rather than just gasoline?
No. I have looked into it. The Kubotas that we've been purchasing are only diesel engines or similar diesels.
So they don't offer them in a other than
They
diesel?
do not offer them in a battery version that would work for us. No.
Okay.
And actually, I'm not aware of any battery version that they have.
Thank you.
One other just quick question
Yes, go ahead, Mrs.
before.
White.
Mr. Picorni, can you just get together with Mr. Kennedy to make sure that that capital asset plan, because now, we're going into year 6 and year 7 now, because the last, when we originally did it, those first 2 years are updated just to reflect your needs and with these Kubotas?
Yes,
Thank you.
we'll do that.
Good, very good. Is there a motion?
Also move, Mayor, to authorize seeking bids for one Kubota utility revenues collection vehicle.
Very good. A motion by Mr. Rock. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Mrs. Sacks. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mrs. Blanco?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Clooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. McCormick.
Thank you.
Next is item K, motion to accept grant funding from the Northeastern Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, NOACA, in the amount of $251,000 for the implementation of pedestrian crosswalks and bump outs at Traymore and Hillbrook roads. Mr. Engelbrecht, you have the floor.
Good evening. The Warrensville Center Road and Cedar Road Multimodal Transportation Plan, or TLCI plan, which was prepared by NOACA in November 2015, aimed to improve connectivity for pedestrians, bicyclists, and public transit riders. The plan focused on physical improvements to the main thoroughfares of Cedar Road and Warrensville Center Road. The plan included several elements which would enhance the functionality of Warrensville Center Road and making the road more hospitable for crossing for pedestrians. It also included plans which would make the road more accessible to pedestrians using alternative forms of transportation, such as bicycles or scooters. To date, there is still much work that has to be done for the city's 2015 TLCI plan to be fully realized. The parts of the plan which have been implemented to date include the striking of bicycle lanes along Warrensville Center Road and the pedestrian mid-block crossings located between Hillbrook and Traymore roads, along with the mid-block crossing located between Millbrook and Fairmont. The grant funding request made to NOACA is another step towards the plan's full realization. A portion of the plan we requested funding for will involve the bump outs of curbs along Warrensville Center Road and the Traymore Road and Hillbrook Road intersections, thereby shortening the current width of 65 feet. Along Warrensville Center Road by approximately 6 feet at all four corners of the intersection. Newly painted crosswalks along Warrensville Center Road are also part of the plan at the intersections. Seeding and mulching will enhance erosion control in the newly formed greenscapes within the curved bump outs. And solar-powered rectangular rapid flashing beacon signs will increase visibility during all times of day at the crosswalks as well. The improvements would allow for the increased ability for the pedestrian to walk, use a bicycle, scooter, or other mode of transportation outside of automobiles to get from their home to their school, home, work, house, or house station, or other destination. Would allow for an increase in physical activity, thereby potentially having a positive impact on public health. Essentially, this project looks to enhance Warrensville Center Road's usability for those who want to travel by means other than automobile or by bus, thereby enhancing the quality of life for residents who call the city home. The city's request for funding was originally $256,000. Through NOACA's Transportation for Livable Communities Implementation Grant, $251,000 was approved by NOACA. The grant would not cover engineering costs, and these costs were not included in the estimate. Previously last year, Council passed a motion allowing for the city to provide matching funds if required, up to $51,246, which should cover the cost of engineering along with the construction supervising as well. The grant is funded by federal transportation dollars, which typically would require the work to be completed before being reimbursed by NOACA. So this is just part of the step in the process of moving forward towards the construction of the pump house along Warrensville Center Road.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Engelbrecht. Looks like we have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Rock. Two questions. So we're just, what we're reviewing today is the motion to accept the grant funding. This isn't accepting the project. We don't know. What's the total cost of the project? Yeah, including the engineering. Yeah.
Engineering, I believe, was an extra $25,000, which was recently estimated by Mr. Cheney. So the grant total is $256,000 as of right now, plus the $25,000.
Okay, so you said there's a match. So what's the city's match?
The city's match would be the engineering costs.
Of the 25,000, you said it was an extra 25, so is it 25 on top of something, or is it just 25?
Yeah, it'd be the 25,000 on top, well, yeah, so the city's cost would be anything above the $251,000.
Okay, so what were the engineering costs? Do you know that?
Yeah, the engineering cost is 25,000.
Okay, so that, out the door, 25 for just engineering?
Yes.
Okay, so the 251s for the project, University Heights would be on the hook for the 25?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds fine. One thing I had suggested in a previous meeting is that we review drawings. Do drawings exist for this work already?
There were in the past renderings which were produced during the planning process with NOAC in 2015.
Yeah, and I serve on that committee, so I'm familiar with what that looks like. But for benefit of council, there were no drawings in our packet. I think it would be helpful if those are included in all of these items so they understand the gravity of the project. I'm familiar with it. I was on the committee. I had recommended we go forward with it. So that I don't need it. But for benefit of council here, we really need to have all of that information, all of the packets going forward. I mean, I just mentioned it recently, so I'm okay this time. But something to keep in mind: as much information as we can digest ahead of the meetings would be extremely helpful.
Right, because I'm visualizing bike lanes. Is that what I'm not even sure.
No. The bike lanes were installed previously a couple years ago.
Okay, drawings will help me.
Yeah. There is a separate plan for bicycle paths in the city that I've been working with Brian King on, along with some of the other surrounding municipalities. But this plan is not for bicycle lanes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I did. There was part of the project to include painting lines for the crosswalks.
Yes.
Okay. There was earlier today we had a safety committee meeting. We're looking at a bid that would probably a review to see if there's any duplicity for it to be so we could pay for it to get done once, not pay for it twice to get done once. So perhaps I agree with Mr. Rock that if we get review drawings, they can be available so we can compare to the bid that was submitted to the safety committee in regards, so we can make sure that our costs are appropriate for the work to be done.
Mayor?
Yes.
So a couple questions. I just wanted to ensure that I understood the last paragraph of your memo in relation to the questions that Councilman Rock asked. So the 25,000 is in addition to 256,000, correct?
So yes.
And the 256 is the project cost, of which only 251 have been grant funded.
Right.
So the 25,000 is in fact in addition to an additional 5,000 that would come out of the previously approved 56,000. Is that right? And the authorization to pay up to, $51,246 has already been authorized by this council.
Yes.
And so the acceptance of this grant, is there a deadline for acceptance of this grant?
We're supposed to have documents turned in by, I want to say it's the end of this month.
Okay, so if we tabled this and brought it back with the drawings for the 18th, then we would be able to view those and have that information before making a decision and still allow you to meet the acceptance.
Sure.
And if there is time to do it after, maybe on the meeting of the 2nd, please let us know. We're seeing drawings and having a presentation at safety for a long list of items on the 2nd. And I think to Councilman Kuhn's point, it would be nice to be able just to see the projects side by side to ensure that there's nothing that's overlapping. And if we only see your project, then I guess we'll see one first, and if we need to accept it by that time.
I can let you know tomorrow what the actual drop dead date is for receiving it. To know it.
Mr. Chair, do you have some insight on this, Mr. Chair?
I just need a clarification. There are no drawings that exist We have the NOACA's rendering of what the project will be. Our next step after we accept the grant is to have a scope meeting with the Ohio Department of Transportation. Because it's NOACA money, we have to go through ODOT, they have to review it, they have to approve it. So we don't have even a scope with them yet. All right, we have the renderings that NOACA prepared 2 years ago. And we can show you that. But there are no drawings that exist as we stand today. No design has been started as far as that goes. As far as the striping goes, whenever we have any construction projects in the city, the street striper does every other street in town is told to skip those areas. We don't pay for it twice because it's in the construction. Like when we pave a road, we stripe it afterwards. We tell the contractor, don't do this road we're paving this year. So we won't pay for it twice. It is in the project, the striping of the new crosswalks. It's in the grant that we submitted, but we won't do it twice. Thank you. I just want, you want additional information, we'll pull it out of the report that NOACA did, but there are no drawings to show it.
I have one more question, sorry. So you bring up an excellent point. So this isn't engineered yet. We're going to have a scope meeting soon. So
based on that report,
what's the scope that you're aware of, and how does it compare to the mid-block crosswalk between Meadowbrook and Hillbrook?
The scope is what's in the report by NOACA. And I'll just pull that out. I mean, we're going to have the bump outs make it a shorter crosswalk as well.
So my question is, how will it compare to the mid-block crosswalk between Meadowbrook and Hillbrook? Is it identical? Are there any differences or any nuances?
That's a mid-block crossing. This is a crossing at an intersection. It doesn't look like a mid-block.
No, my question is between Hillbrook and Meadowbrook, there's a mid-block crosswalk. In our safety committee, there was an accident where someone hit the signal.
Right.
How does this project compare to that project?
It bumps the curb out. So
no, I understand, but is it the exact same thing that we've already done?
No,
we only did one of them so far. So why is it different then?
So it's a curb bumps out. It's not in the middle.
It's not the mid-block then.
It's not.
Okay.
It bumps out the curves at the train mark.
I'm sorry, this is not on Cedar. This is the big intersection.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
It's on Warrensville Center Road.
I'm gonna need drawings. I'm not understanding
this. There are no drawings. Again, design drawings do not exist. We'll bring back what NOACA has in their report. And there's pages out of there. There's color drawings and renderings. So that's all.
Okay, but to confirm, this project's not really moving forward right now. We're just making a motion to accept a grant.
Right.
So you will bring those drawings when we go to approve this project, correct?
Yeah.
This isn't the last time we're hearing something on this project, correct?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Kennedy.
Just to point out, if the project gets going this year, we do get the money, we will need to amend the budget because it's a reimbursable grant.
Yes.
So we have to upfront the expenditures. I'm not sure from everything that I read that it'll get done this year or started this year, but that's just something for everybody to remember that we would have to amend the budget.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for raising that. Yes, Mr. Gould.
I just, for the reasons that we kind of stated, I'd like to see those drawings, or whatever they are. Yes. Because I think one of the concerns that I want to make sure that as many times as possible along the way when it comes to scope and things like that we see what we're talking about, the location that we're talking about it, what we think it's going to be, so that there are no surprises and that it's very clearly documented. Right. Here's the packet, y'all saw this, this is what you said it was going to be, and this is what, it is now down the road. And so if we see, mulching and grass, and then all of a sudden it becomes, a forest of trees along the side of the road, we know that there's been a difference in scope. And then we can look at that difference between what we see in the packet next meeting and this. So with that, unless there's additional discussion, I'd make a motion to table this item until the next meeting.
There's a motion to table this item until the next meeting by Mr. Gould. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Bleinfeld. Any discussion on the motion to table?
So you'll have enough time though, by the next meeting. There's still enough time to meet the deadline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm confident with that.
Okay,
But just the May 2nd meeting,
You don't know.
probably not.
Yeah, it has to be the next meeting.
Okay.
So my understanding is that your motion is to table the agenda item, and it's basically about accepting a grant, correct? We could always put on a motion to accept the grant, but we could decline to fund the project. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be correct.
Yeah.
Just like the comment, I would prefer to accept the money from NOACA and see what the design is, get that process going. I think that we would.
We need to accept the grant in order to see the design.
This is procedural.
Right, and we could also accept the grant, and Mr. Engelbrecht could circulate the pictures that we have.
I'd like to see them, the reason I make the motion is because I'd like to see them as part of the packet, so that it's documented in the packet, that we have those pictures, we move on to the design stage, you get the actual drawings that Mr. Cheney just talked about, we see the drawings, we have the other things. I don't want us ever to be in a position where we're talking about what we did or didn't know, and when you didn't, why didn't you ask that question when you passed it the first time you heard about it? Well, okay, now we are, and now I'm asking for them, that's why I made the motion.
I think it's developing better habits.
Exactly, and I'll say I misunderstood the project again because I thought this was a mid-block crosswalk, and I misunderstood that. But I do remember during the NOACA study that we were going to do bump outs at Meadowbrook in Warrensville Center Road. This is a different intersection, so I don't remember seeing that in the presentation. It would be helpful.
All right. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote on the motion to table.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mrs. Blankenfeld? Aye. Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Nay.
Mr. King?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item is a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing legal proceedings, personnel, and real estate matters. We got one real estate matter to talk about. It can be brief, though. Please. Is there anything else?
There's also a litigation matter, and depending on council's preference, I can review in the executive session, or I can communicate with the vice mayor and have her send it. It's nothing urgent.
In fact, I think both matters could probably be handled out there.
Up to council. I'm prepared to talk to you, but I know it's late.
No problem. We can speak it out. We can speak to everybody. That's fine.
Or could we make the motion to enter executive session for legal and real estate, and then you give us the topic, and we could choose whether.
I think we should talk about the real estate.
Okay, let's do that. Okay. We'll entertain the motion to enter the executive session and for the real estate matter. Is there a motion?
I'll make I'd like to follow up Councilman Rock. I'd like to hear what the legal issue is before we. So I'd like to enter our executive session to talk about real estate.
We don't have to necessarily talk about it. We're just
real estate and litigation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. Okay. Motion by Mr. Gould, second by.
I'll second.
Mrs. Blankfeld. Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mrs. Blankfeld? Aye. Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise? Aye. Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Very good, motion carries. We'll have the executive session following the conclusion of the regular portion of the meeting. We'll now turn to reports and communications from directors. Finance, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, we sent out the financial reports through the end of February. I hope to have March closed this week and have some reports out to you before the weekend for the first quarter. I did recap income tax collections through March. They're up 7.9% over last year. This year's collections are $2,674,590. Last year we collected $2,477,891. It's a difference of about $197,000 to the good. So we'll continue to update you. I did, I think, put a note in the reports that I distributed that Cuyahoga County's done a good job in collecting delinquent taxes. So our tax collections so far this year, which represent the first half distributions, are running a little ahead of schedule, and it's primarily because they've done a good job in getting delinquencies down. So that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Any questions from Mr. Kennedy? Seeing none, Director of Law, Mr. McConville.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I just wanted to let you know in connection with Ordinance 2022-16, which is the ordinance that would pass through inspection fees to owners and or developers. I did prepare a memorandum, and my understanding is that ordinance will be discussed in committee and then return to council's agenda. And that concludes my report.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. McConville. Any questions for Mr. McConville?
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Gould.
Mr. McConville, at the last meeting, I had made a motion regarding the mayor's interruption and taking back the floor to allege that I had stated something that was factually inaccurate from the previous time. Again, this evening, we heard the mayor interrupt Ms. Sachs as she was speaking. I made a mistake regarding where that provision was located. I said it was in the charter. It's not. I believe it is inside of the ordinances regarding presiding officers in Chapter 220. Have you had the opportunity to review that?
Yes. There is an ordinance, I believe the number is 220.07, entitled Presiding Officer. Indicates that the mayor is the presiding officer at the meeting, but that in connection with any point of order, if there are two council members calling a question on the point of order, that point of order can be put to the council as a whole to vote and decide the matter.
Okay, so that outlines the procedure that's followed, including that there's no additional discussion, that you make a brief statement and then there's a vote.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Sure, I just wanted to ensure that the procedure that's to be followed when or if a member of this council feels that the mayor has used his authority. For instance, if you disagree with what I've said, politically or factually, it's inappropriate to take the floor back from me, is my opinion. I would disagree with being called to order for that. You are happy or welcome to bring that up and to challenge the factual allegation that I've made or to make a different political argument that I've made, but to take back the floor as if I had violated the rule of this council, I felt was inappropriate, which is why I took made the motion, and it was not accepted by the mayor. So I just wanted to ensure that the procedure we need to follow is stated inside of that.
Yes, it is. So in that instance, had your motion been seconded by any member of council, the point of order would be what council's voting on, and council's vote would decide that point of order.
So where the floor would then be? Or who then had the floor?
Yes, that's what they would be voting on.
Thank you.
It's essentially, I think it may be easier to think of it, it's essentially an appeal of the mayor's initial ruling on the point.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Mr. McConville? If there are none, Public Safety Police.
No report, Mayor.
And no report. Public Safety Fire.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Just one item to report this evening. Next Monday, April 11th, we'll be starting our hydrant flushing and flowing. This will take place during the weekdays, during daytime hours, till the end of the month. We urge residents to run their water, the cold water, so it's clear, not wash clothes while we're doing the streets. We'll have signs posted starting Sunday evening. We'll be starting on the west side of the city, moving east, and we'll try to provide some frequent updates on our social media sites. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chief Burko. Any questions for the Chief? Seeing none. Service, Mr. McCormick.
Just like to report that curbside leaf collection started today, along with loose brush on the curbs. That will be going on through the month of April. And tennis courts were also cleaned out today, net screen installed, clean screens put up, so the tennis courts are now open and playable. There's my report.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Picorni. Any questions for Mr. Picorni? Seeing none, building, Mr. McConty is not here. He's getting settled in though as our new building commissioner. We'll go on then to housing and community development. Mr. Engelbrecht, do you have a report?
I have no report.
No report, thank you, sir. City engineer, Mr. Cheney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Two items this evening. Next Monday, April 11th, Mr. Picorni and I are invited to the pre-construction meeting for the Cedar Road resurfacing project. It's at ODOT District 12. We will come back from that meeting with a schedule, emergency phone numbers and things like that to give to the administration in case anything should happen. I would fully anticipate that the construction will start by the end of April. Usually within 10 days of the pre-construction meeting, the contractor will start. So there'll be barrels out there or whatever would happen once they start construction. So, second item is the resurfacing program for this year, 2022 resurfacing project. We have the streets of Bushnell from Edgerton to Warrenton Center. We have White Road, and we have London from Middlebrook to Silsbee on the list. It's in the budget. Those plans, there's really 9 plans and specifications will be prepared in the next 2 weeks, and we will be ready for that at that point. Working on them now and not completed yet. End of report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cheney. Any questions for Mr. Cheney? Seeing none. Communications and civic engagement. Mr. Cook.
No report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. Economic development. Mrs. Drucker. No report. Okay, thank you. We now turn to reports of standing committees and taking of action thereon. Building and housing. Mrs. Blankville.
Thank you, Mayor. I anticipate that we will have our next Building and Housing Committee meeting in May. This allows time for Mr. McConville, Mr. Engelbrecht, to further explore codified ordinance sections that may need updating for various reasons that we discussed at our last committee meeting, as well as the item that Mr. McConville noted.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Blankville. Community outreach. Mr. King.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. King. Economic development, Mr. Rump. No report. Thank you. Finance, Mrs. Weiss.
No report.
Thank you. Recreation, Mr. Cooney.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. And safety, Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mayor. Prior to this meeting, we had our monthly safety committee meeting. The law director will be drafting a door-to-door solicitation registry ordinance, which will allow our citizens to opt out of door-to-door solicitation. There will be a registry maintained by NOPEC, and stickers presented or circulated by them, as well as a background and badging process that the police department will undertake so that citizens know that individuals who are knocking on their door have at least been background checked. That proposed legislation will return to committee for further discussion and debate. We have passed on from the safety committee meeting the 2 fireworks-related ordinances related to manufacture, sale, and commercial display. You'll see those at the general committee meeting or general council meeting next month. We will also be creating as a committee, a subcommittee of individuals who will be reviewing the criminal ordinances of the city of University Heights for those that need to be updated, replaced, or added. Thank you, Mayor. Nothing further at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Gould. Maybe it's worth mentioning that we'll be seeking people for that committee, attorneys and others in the community.
We will be seeking it. Means we can mention it now, and let's push it to social media as well. Thank you. That sounds good.
Okay, so service and utilities, Mrs. Sachs.
Thank you, Mayor Brennan. As mentioned, we have our next Service and Utilities Committee meeting is on May 3rd, where we'll have Don Johnson and 2 of his colleagues from the Kimball Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF, do a presentation, and you can ask all your questions and get a little clarity with that as we continue our education and awareness of reducing recycling and all the other reasons. Thank you.
Yes.
Very good, thank you, Mrs. Sachs. Committee of the whole, Mrs. White.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There will be a council of the whole meeting tomorrow. We will be discussing with a county representative some of our council retreat ideas and how to possibly move forward with those.
That's at 16.
Yeah, it's at 6. Yeah.
Okay. That's at 6, you said?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you, Mrs. West. Reports of standing committees and taking of action thereon. Or, excuse me, a special committees. I don't think there are any this time. Any unfinished or miscellaneous business before we go to the executive session? Seeing none, we will then go to the executive session. I do not anticipate there will be any business conducted on the record after that, except for a motion to adjourn. So, thank you and have a good evening. If you, there's no reason, I don't think, for you to stick around to watch the adjournment, but of course you're welcome. We will now go to the executive session.